Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Black Ops 4 In Depth. In today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the VAPR-XKG Assault Rifle NUKETOWN Edition. All of the gameplay for this video was filmed when NUKETOWN 24/7 was the most popular playlist, and since the VAPR is more of a close-range, high rate of fire assault rifle with the bayonet attachment, of course, I figured that NUKETOWN would be the absolute perfect place to show this weapon's strengths and few of its weaknesses. So all of the gameplay today is going to get to be NUKETOWN. I hope you enjoy it, and let's jump straight into the stats of the VAPR. It has 3 distinct damage ranges, starting off with 37 up close, which is a pretty high amount of damage. It'll rapidly decrease down to 32 damage, and then finally down to 29 at long range, like most of the assault rifles in this game. What that means for you is that it will take between 5 and 6 shots to kill, depending on how far away you are from the enemy, which again is normal for assault rifles in this game. Headshot multiplier, unfortunately, is 1.1x damage, so you don't get any significant damage boost at any ranges, with the exception of long range. Now, at very long range, if you get a whole bunch of headshots, you can kill one shot faster. Unfortunately, given how far away that is and the recoil of the weapon, I'm going to go ahead and give the headshots the overall not useful at any range, because you just won't be able to get good headshots at those ranges. However, on the VAPR, you can equip high caliber. Now, high caliber will deal 30% bonus damage to the head, which unfortunately isn't useful up close. Like, your close range time to kill won't change, though your damage output certainly will. However, your medium and long ranges will definitely kill faster, and high caliber is an attachment for the VAPR that I think performs best at medium range. That's where you get your real benefit from it. And I am putting a little asterisk down here on the bottom. This amount of damage was recently nerfed down from 1.78x. It was 1.78 damage for headshots, which made this a 3-shot kill weapon at ludicrous ranges, and it was just an insane damage pump, dealing something, I think it was like 68 damage a shot, or just something insane like that. So Treyarch decided to nerf it. And I kind of agree with them in that having a weapon that shoots this fast and 3-shot kill with high caliber was annoying when I ran into it, but I also feel it took away one of the strongest attributes of the gun and left the VAPR significantly weaker than it was before. When it comes to rate of fire, it fires at 650 rounds per minute in normal mode. However, if you have rapid fire equipped, it'll fire at 700 rounds per minute. This is on the slightly faster side of assault rifles in Black Ops 4. So, when it comes to time to kill, the VAPR has a very average time to kill for rifles. It's pretty much dead center middle of the pack. It's not a fast killing weapon, it's not a slow killing weapon, it's a very normal time to kill, but this can be better if you equip rapid fire or high caliber or any combination of the two. You can push it toward the faster killing weapons in the game, but that's very attachment dependent. The base one, unfortunately, not as much. And unfortunately, the time to kill over range isn't very good because the initial base damage range is about 12 meters, which is similar to that of the KN-57. It is one of the shortest maximum damage ranges on I almost said shotguns, on assault rifles in Black Ops 4, because it's pretty close to shotgun range. After that, you're going to drop down from your 37 damage to 32, and you're going to require more shots to kill, which can be very frustrating. So the VAPR is a close range weapon. When it comes to the recoil on this weapon, it's overall low, but there's a lot of visual shake and low predictability. So, like, mathematically speaking, if you just full on hose a wall and spray, the amount of recoil, or just, you know, distance from where you're aiming, isn't that high. It's lower than most of the other weapons in the game, except for maybe the KN or the ICR. However, there is a loud noise and a lot of visual shake and sort of an awkward rumble with the weapon, and even your iron sights shake, and the recoil that you do have doesn't seem to want to do the same thing every time. For instance, the Rampart has by far the worst recoil, but it's relatively predictable. I can fight it. I think the recoil predictability on the VAPR is the lowest in the game, which is the most difficult part about the weapon. And it's one of the reasons I have a love-hate relationship with this weapon. On one hand, I love the weapon because it's fun to use, I love the look of it, I love the bayonet, I love a lot of things about it. I like it in Blackout too. However, the low predictability on the recoil just makes it harder to use than the Maddox or the ICR or the KN. Also, the VAPR has the worst iron sights in the entire assault rifle class. class. Most of the assault rifles in Black Ops 4 have fantastic iron sights, and this is coming from a guy who's had this little tile on in-depth that says iron sights are terrible on every gun for like the last 5 years, but Black Ops 4 has good iron sights. VAPR just doesn't. They're very big, they're bulky, there's a lot of clutter, it's easy to lose track of your targets at range, and there's a fair bit of muzzle flash. The iron sights can be made better if you use a suppressor. That means a lot less muzzle flash so you can track your targets better, but they're most certainly not ideal. Because of that, you'll want to equip some kind of optical attachment, and oddly for this weapon, I prefer either the ELO sight, which is the 1.0x zoom, the little hovering blue dot, or the 2x. I'm calling them by their blackout names. I think it's Recon in multiplayer, but for some reason, some strange reason, I prefer the 2x sight over any other sight for this weapon, which is really weird because the VAPR is supposed to be a close range weapon. It's supposed to have a lot of recoil. It's supposed to not be good for long range sights, but the 2x just did really good work for me, and I was happier with it than I expected. But if I wasn't using the 2x, I'd use the ELO, and I'd recommend most people use the ELO because I think I'm just an anomaly here. Hipfire on the VAPR works well just because the gun shoots fast, then that's kind of it. It doesn't have the best hipfire box, you can't put laser sight on it. It just isn't the best strategy to hipfire, but it is doable given the overall speed of the weapon. And uniquely, the VAPR is one of 2 assault rifles that can use a suppressor, and the penalty for using a suppressor is very minor at only about minus 15% range, so the suppressor on the VAPR is one of the best attachments to equip, at least in multiplayer. We'll talk about Blackout a little bit later, and I recommend using it frequently. Your penalty's super minor, it keeps you off the radar, it's very quiet, and suppressors are infrequent in this game, so people don't really respond to them quite like they used to in previous COD games. A quick side note, there is a prestige challenge in this game, a hard one that you can get with the VAPR, and I think possibly only the VAPR, where you have to kill an enemy on an objective while you are also on the same objective using a weapon that has a suppressor, rapid fire, and high caliber equipped. And the VAPR is going to be by far the easiest way to do that. It's one of the few weapons you can equip all of those things, and you can get close to people and kill them on the objectives. I think you have to kill them with a headshot too, just something crazy like that. So you can go ahead and go for that challenge with the VAPR. Aim down sights time is 285 milliseconds. This is the same as all the other assault rifles, more or less. Unfortunately, no quick draw or quick draw 2, so what you see is what you get right there. I'm a little surprised. I figured that a weapon geared more around close quarters combat would have quick draw, and I think that having quick draw on the VAPR would make it a much stronger weapon. Reload time's a little bit on the fast side for assault rifles, but maybe just slightly. More accurately, maybe it's just normal. It reloads at 1.5 seconds, and if you put fast mags on there, it reloads at 1 second. I do enjoy fast mags, but most of the time I'm running other attachments, and yeah, reload's normal. I do miss having FMJ. There's no FMJ on the VAPR. I'm an FMJ addict, and I've had people in my comments point out that not that many enemies are running armor anymore. I think it's more of a crutch for me in that I just hate armor with such a passion that I hold on to FMJ for that 10% of players that do use armor. However, I will admit on the VAPR, having something like FMJ really isn't the point of this weapon. This weapon was clearly designed around other things, such as Stock 2. The VAPR is the only assault rifle that allows you to use Stock 2, which allows you to strafe at full speed, left, right, up, down, whatever, but it also lets you stay aim down sights while changing your stances. So in Black Ops 4, let's say you are crouched and you want to stand up, or more accurately, if you want to go prone and stand back up, you have to un-aim down sights and you get a very inaccurate hip fire. With Stock 2, you can crouch and maintain a very high rate of speed, and then prone and maintain decent speed, and then come in and out of prone really quickly without aiming down sights. And what's useful about this is you can kind of crouch behind head glitches and pop up faster and react faster than other enemies. So if you were doing this with a normal assault rifle, you would be like proned out behind some cover, and then you would hit your stance button twice and you would come back up, and at each change you would un-aim down sights and get hip fire, and then you'd have to re-aim down sights, and it would slow your reaction time on shooting somebody. With Stock 2, you don't do that. You just pop right on up like you're playing COD 4 MW2, and Stock 2 is probably the strongest attachment for the VAPR and definitely the way to be using it. It stacks well with Skulker too. The Bayonet operator mod is way more fun and more useful than it has any right to be. I expected it to honestly just be straight trash because you're bringing a knife to a gunfight, but given NUKETOWN at least, and the close quarters nature of the gun, and how many fights in this game just kind of end up in people's faces, I had a good time with the Bayonet operator mod. I'd be hard-pressed on In-Depth to tell you that it's the best strategy or that it's really worth the points, but it's close. It's really not bad at all. Overall, it's hard for me to recommend the VAPR over other good rifles in Black Ops 4. The VAPR is by no means horrible, but it struggles to have a good specialty other than the Stock 2 or Bayonet strategy, and for most of your engagements and for most general play, other rifles will perform better. Its niche or strong suit should be close quarters combat, but the Maddox does that slightly better because the Maddox has better attachments for close quarters combat. Laser sight, quick draw, and stock, but maybe not stock too. The Maddox is going to be a better close quarters assault rifle than the VAPR is, and I think the Maddox still has a slightly faster time to kill up close, which is unfortunate. So I do have 3 recommended classes for the VAPR. I'm going to do this one like the hipster sandwich shop again, since you all seem to enjoy that. You have the basic VAPR, which is suppressor, rapid fire, and iron sights. You just want to run this kind of a low attachment weapon and put all your other stuff into your secondary or additional perks or something like that. But if you're going to play close quarters combat, the suppressor, rapid fire, and iron sights will be all that you need. Not really much penalty with the suppressor, kill a little faster with rapid fire, and you can use the iron sights at close range. The other, and this is probably the best way to run the VAPR, is I'm going to call it the MW2. You want to run stock 1 and stock 2, so you can strafe super fast and you get no penalties whatsoever for changing your stances. You want to run a traditional red dot sight. I think it's a nice balance of range and accuracy. Fast mags, because you're going to be spraying a lot with this class. And finally, the perk Skulker. Skulker allows you to maintain your full movement speed when you're crouched and a faster movement speed while prone. So that combined with stock 1 and 2 allows you to crawl around super fast when you're prone and do a lot of unusual movement combinations that most players won't know how to deal with, and that's probably the best way to use the VAPR. The second best way is I'm going to call bringing a knife to a gunfight. Run your Bayonet, Suppressor, Rapid Fire, and Ghost. It's essentially the same as the first class, except I really want you to have Bayonet and Ghost, and you want to use this as your close quarters combat punishment class. People won't see you on the radar at all. When you shoot, you're not on the radar. You're going to shoot as fast as you can, and if anybody gets unfortunately too close to you, they are going to get stuck by the bayonet. And I had a lot of fun with this class on NUKETOWN. It worked better than I expected it would. So finally, at the end of the video, let's talk about Blackout, and we get a little PC gameplay here where I'm using the VAPR. The VAPR is a great backup gun in Blackout, but it shouldn't be your primary ranged weapon. I initially really loved the VAPR, but over time, as I understood the meta and got better at the game, I realized it's not as great as it's cracked up to be in Blackout. The higher base damage on the VAPR, I'm going to say oddly, possibly makes it better than the Maddox up close, even though the Maddox has a higher rate of fire, definitely. Slightly better time to kill, yes, definitely. But people in Blackout have a lot of armor, and sometimes it's very important to put your first couple of shots down with really high base damage to chunk through the armor and to kind of let them know you're not shooting a pea shooter, so that's very important. And I do enjoy the VAPR as a close to medium range weapons. It's also one of the few weapons in Blackout that I enjoy using a suppressor on. Here on In-Depth, I'm really big on long barrel. I talk about long barrel all the time. Obviously, you can use the long barrel on the VAPR, and that's fine. But since I'm using it as a backup weapon, I'm using it mostly as a medium and close range weapon. It works better with a suppressor because it makes it a little bit harder for enemies to get a feel for where I'm at. And I have a suspicion that the suppressor on this weapon is unique because it is very, very quiet and very hard to hear. It may be a uniquely good suppressor, but I have not tested that yet. Now, all that being said, the VAPR can definitely be used at long range. Its recoil is not such that it's excluded from long range, like the Swordfish or the Maddox. You can, but it's just harder to full auto people than the other rifles. Comparatively, I can just full auto people with the ICR at like 200 meters and it works just fine. The VAPR, you can't do that. You need to either have insanely good recoil control or use shorter bursts. So the VAPR is not your go-to long-range weapon, and I do believe because of that it's better with lower zoom sights, and the one attachment that you're going to want to run on it is stock. Stock in Blackout reduces recoil, which is your #1 enemy with the VAPR, so stock should be your go-to attachment, your #1 priority for getting if you're going to run the VAPR setup. Guys, that is all for this episode of In-Depth. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.